Erica from Crypto Soul, and welcome to the Erica Show, where I talk to the top builders and leaders in the crypto space. And today in episode 44, wow, we have Michael, CEO of Pylons, here with us. Hi, Michael.
Hello, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me and the Erica Show. Very excited to have you here. I've met you in person a while ago, and more excited to be connected to you. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we met in Lisbon at the Cosmoverse series of things, and it was amazing. It was such a great time.
It was.
That conference was so amazing. It was like so full of people who actually build software, and like so not full of people who hang around the edges doing like other stuff. It was very low on the hype and very high on the execution.
That is a very good point, because that's what I felt as well during my stay in Lisbon. I just felt like I met so many builders and not just like hyping people. So that was really a fruitful trip. But I'm sure many of the community members are curious about Pylons, and it is a very new upcoming project. So I really want to, dive in and get your, insights. So before we get started, why don't you do a short intro of yourself, briefly what you do, and, what you do in the crypto space?
Sure. So my name is Michael. I was a mathematician for a little while. I was theoretic. I did a lot of like abstract algebra and like topology and stuff. I was really into I wanted to solve the Poincare conjecture. I was very much like a pure math person. And then I sort of was like, what is a math professor's life like though? And I decided that maybe I didn't actually want to be I didn't actually want a PhD in math. Like it wasn't sort of what I wanted to do with my time. I went out. I was a scientist for a little while. I did like biochemistry. Turns out I'm actually not good at that at all, because you have to be really, really precise all the time when you're doing chemistry, and that's not me. And I like having a backspace key for when I screw something up. And then I went into software after that. So I been a professional computer programmer since I guess 2006. I've been doing it all my life, but that's when 2007 maybe is when I became like a pro. And then I've been doing that a long time. I started a company in 2008 with my brother, which was actually the first company the Gates Foundation ever did an equity investment into.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow.
I was at Pivotal Labs, which was, very big deal in San Francisco to be in Pivotal Labs. And then I was at Cloudflare. And I wound up getting into crypto in 2013. My friend Ryan said he needed help. He wanted to restart this Bitcoin exchange called TradeHill, which had been operating in South America. He wanted to recreate it in San Francisco, and he wanted me to run the engineering team and design the architecture for it. So I joined him and did that. And that was sort of my first introduction to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and also like government regulation and like the politics of the banking industry and sort of the dangers and basically like the risks and dangers that financial companies face, which are like nothing at all like the risks that normal tech companies face, because they're not technical. They're all sort of like political and regulatory and all this stuff, right? It's just like you have the wrong friends and then you get destroyed. And so I did that. That was really interesting. I did a project with Elizabeth Stark called Pings, which was like sort of like Gitcoin. We basically did Gitcoin in 2015, and nobody thought that was interesting in 2015. So that was cool. And then I was chief technology officer of BKCM, which was a Bitcoin exchange. Well, sorry, no, BKCM is a crypto fund. And as part of that, we did the initial investment into the pre-fund for the Atom token. So I spent a lot of time with Jay Kwan thinking about sort of like the proposal for what Cosmos should be and what the Atom token should be. Talked to him a lot, and then eventually we did the deal. And so I've been sort of a fan of the Atom ever since. And then when when the fund became much more of like a momentum trading token fund and they didn't need a chief technical officer, I went off and I was like, I'm going to do NFTs on Cosmos. Like this is going to be the way that blockchain becomes a real mass market thing, because like Cosmos can really scale and NFTs are the things that like regular people actually want to interact with, right? Like normal human beings don't have a lot of money, but they can have a lot of art. They can make stuff. So I got really excited about sort of really bridging the gap to the regular human beings of the planet by doing digital items on Cosmos. So that's how I got here. I started doing it with like contractors with my own money in 2019, and then in March of this year, Tendermint saw my prototype and decided that it made sense. They gave me an incubation deal. I raised some more money. My first hire was, I think, in May this year, May or June. So we're like, yeah, we're a little over 6 months old, but not much more than 6 months old. So still a pretty young project. You know, so it was definitely like a pretty big sprint to get our testnet live for Hack Atom, but we did it. It's live. The demo apps are live, and yeah, here we are.
Congratulations. Wow, what a trajectory. Wow. See, whenever I hear these like backstories, like backgrounds and, you know, what you've been through and, you know, what your experiences, it's just so amazing. And I never, wow, what a, you know, career that you had. Oh, wow. This itself is, you know, very fulfilling to me. I'm like, wow, this is an amazing person. But yeah, oh my gosh. So you basically answered all of my questions that I was going to ask you, but like, in getting into the Cosmos ecosystem, right? And back in 2019 or before? Yeah. What really drew you into the ecosystem? And well, I guess in crypto in general, maybe you could answer that as well. But, you know, in 2013, it was not really easy to, you know, come into this space and like venture in because there was not much to really, you know, no reference, right? And so just curious about that philosophy and I guess the change of, you know, your mindset. Curious about that story as well.
Yeah, you know, I had heard about Bitcoin and I thought it was stupid.
When was this?
I don't know. I probably heard about Bitcoin in 2010 or 2011.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's so stupid. Why would you want deflationary money? Nobody would ever spend it. The economy wouldn't work. It's just like a crazy idea. It doesn't make any sense. It's never gonna. Anyway, that's what I thought. So, you know, oh well. And then, so then when my friend asked me to do a Bitcoin exchange with him, I said like, Ryan, like, I don't know about this Bitcoin thing. I think it's kind of silly. And he said, well, like, you know, you don't have a job right now. You're just sort of like wandering the redwoods of the San Francisco Bay Area, like, you know, looking for something to do. You need something to do. Come build it. You know, at least the technology is like new and interesting. You know, the gateway, like the things you have to do to make an exchange really work and like integrate with like the regular economy and all this stuff. It's going to be really interesting. Even if Bitcoin's silly, like give it a shot. It'll, you know, we'll know, you know, it'll be 6 months to a year before we like know if it's going to work. That's not that much time. Like it'll be fun and interesting, and come join. So I was like, okay. So that's sort of like how it happened. I was like very much more interested in like the technical challenge of building the exchange, in the sort of like professional challenge of like hiring and organizing an engineering team than I was in sort of like Bitcoin itself.
Oh, and then in Cosmos, you know, you said you knew about Atom, you know, due to the fund, right? But also like when you were really plugging into the ecosystem, what really drew you into the ecosystem?
I mean, yeah, Jaquan was very impressive. He had thought about so many of the details of how distributed consensus works. And so, you know, you could ask him like, he had written this engine and you could ask him like detailed questions about how it differed from some other, you know, consensus engine, and he would have a really thought through answer, right? And so like he really, like you could tell that he wasn't just like blowing smoke, that he like really, really deeply understood what he was doing. And what he had done with sort of like separating the consensus engine from the application code so that you could like have consensus around whatever kind of sort of like transaction set you wanted to support just felt really powerful and important. And then separating that from sort of this idea of IBC and how the chains could talk to each other and how that was going to plug in, to me, like as someone who, you know, came up in the web world and has seen like how you scale things in the internet, IBC was the only thing that made any sense as what would create scalability, right? Because all these other systems were saying like, we're just going to make our one chain, our one consensus really, really fast. And it's just like, okay, but like, you're never going to make it fast enough. That's not possible. Mm-hmm. Like you have to have a distributed system. There has to be a federated system. You can't have a central one thing everyone has to check into to be like the source of truth. Like that isn't going to work just from a scalability perspective as to how the web works. So IBC had a technical vision that I thought was like clearly the right one. And so, you know, I got on board with that, and yeah, and that was sort of the big thing that was like, okay, this is the ecosystem, like this is going to work.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of, you know, professors or academia, you know, when I come across them, they really respect the Tendermint engine. And I think, you know, what the thought process that went into it really impressed them. So that's the general impression that I got from like worldwide professors. So yeah, I think they echo what you just said. So yeah, thank you for the answer. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, I mean, being in the Cosmos ecosystem myself, you know, I was, you know, hosting a lot of events and also, you know, hackathons and stuff. But I think one of the things that was kind of lacking was the NFT aspect, right? I think falling a little behind in the NFT because like a lot of other chains were like quickly developing all these like protocols and marketplace and such. So I think, and then you just popped up, and I think that really made a lot of sense. But yeah, and I think this is delightful to a lot of people who are welcoming, who are wanting to have this NFT aspect in the Cosmos ecosystem. So why don't you introduce like Pylons in, you know, simple words and what it does and what it can do. Yeah, just really love the intro.
Yeah, so Pylons is a digital property engine for experiences, blockchain powered experiences in the Cosmos ecosystem. So what it can do is the idea is you build a mobile app. This is what it's for. It's for powering like mobile experiences for regular people that are powered by digital items and the emotional energy that's generated from creating and transforming digital items. So we have a mobile SDK. You write your mobile app, you build your game or your narrative or your ticketing system or your gift, whatever it is, you build it, right? And then our SDK, you put it in and you can say, I want to do this action, I want to do this action, I want to do this action. We have another app that holds your user's keys and that authorizes and broadcasts transactions. So as a mobile developer, you don't have to know anything about how to sign a transaction. You don't have to like manage private keys. You just say, I want to do this transaction, this transaction. So to define your transactions, we have a system where you write JSON files and you say, you know, to create this item, you have to spend this much money, or, you know, you can just create it. You can have some free thing and it takes 30 seconds and then you like gather your twigs, right? And it gives you 5 twigs or whatever you want to do. So you can program these transactions with like inputs and outputs and how long it should take for it to actually go through. And what percentage probabilities you have for the different outputs you might get. And so it's a very like custom blockchain exactly around digital property and programmable, transformable, composable digital property. So it's not a scripting language. It's just sort of like you just define these like sort of tech trees of how property gets created and how it interacts with other property to get to sort of like where your journey is taking them. And so you write these JSON files, you publish them to our chain, and then your users can use this mobile app you build to go through this journey you've created. So the idea is to create an experience that's mediated by blockchain apps and then give it to people in the mobile environment where people in the world really live their lives. And that's how, so the plan is to bridge the gap between sort of the blockchain item world and like the actual normal person, like mobile phone gaming world. That's what Pylons' sort of core mission is.
So that's why it is mobile, app, because, I guess even, where I was based from Vietnam, everyone has at least 2 mobile phones,
Exactly.
And I think let alone like a laptop, of course, that's a default, but like, I think mobile is like the tool, to really build stuff.
People spend their time on their mobile phones. They install apps on their mobile phones. They don't install browser extensions on their laptops.
Exactly.
Right? Like the community that we spend time with, I have like 10 different wallet browser extensions or something. Right? I'm sure you have a bunch too.
Yeah.
But like, that's us. And like, everyone I know has a bunch of browser extensions for different like crypto wallets, right? That's not the world. Like, that's not how people in the world actually operate, right? Most people don't have browser extensions. People have mobile phones. Most of what they do is on their mobile phones. They're not really interested in going on their laptops for, to buy art or to like play games or any of that. They don't want to be on their laptops. They want to play on their phones. That's how the world is. So, my mission has been to sort of like bring the crypto community to the world, because I think there's a lot of talk in the crypto ecosystem about bringing the world to crypto, and everyone's going to learn how to properly secure their seed phrase. And everyone's going to learn, the difference between like, a minor tip and a gas fee, right? And that isn't going to happen. I think that is not going to happen. The world, the population of the planet's going to stay basically the same. And the crypto community is going to have to reach them with the kinds of affordances and user experiences that they already know how to use. That's the mission of Pylons, is to bring digital property to the people of the planet using the kinds of user experience they already know how to use.
Right. So I guess like the general conclusion is like make the average user not like recognize that it is using like a blockchain app or something, just like a typical app, and very easily and without any obstacles, right? That's the mission for, I think, a lot of blockchain related apps. I think that's the pain point, but also it's a very big challenge, right? For all of them. But I think NFTs in particular, I think that field is definitely gonna be facing the mass like really quickly. It's still, even now it is. When you decided to launch the NFT project based on the NFT protocol, did you have any like prior interest in NFTs and, I guess passion for the arts or whatnot? What was your motivation in getting into the NFTs space, I would say?
I've always been a performing artist. Like, I like musical theater. Yeah, I've done a lot of musical theater in my life.
Wow.
One of these days I have goals. I want to play Billy Flynn in Chicago someday in some production. That's like one of my life goals. Like, I play guitar, like whatever. Like I don't do a lot of like visual art. I'm not a painter. I appreciate that stuff. But I do sort of like believe in like the creative economy as really important. I think, when I was first starting out in crypto in 2013 as a, baby degen, everyone, if you went to Bitcoin, the San Jose Bitcoin conference in 2013, there was a lot of like bank the unbanked rhetoric happening.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to get to, you know, this place where everyone on the planet can escape these institutions, these financial institutions, which are so predatory, which they really are. Like, you know, if you look at Wells Fargo's financial documents, and you look at how much of like their revenue comes from like overdraft fees on people with less than $100, it's like kind of infuriating. Like that's how they make their money, right? They like hit people with no money with fees they can't afford, and like that's their business. It's just really like, you know, there's a lot of like, it has a lot of energy to be like, we should change this. It should be better than this. And that has not happened, right? Like in the intervening 8 years, we have not banked the unbanked. We have made a lot of billionaires. We have, you know, invented like private equity funded yield farming. You know, we have created a certain amount of like very marketing driven like digital art, you know, very sort of like tip of the pyramid, like Bored Apes, like, you know, Twitter powered art market. So there's a bunch of stuff going on that's like interesting at least, but it isn't like a mass liberation of the planet from the like systems that sort of intermediate all commerce and are so brutal and extractive. And I always really wanted to do that. I always wanted to be like, well, can we really liberate people? Is it possible to disintermediate some portion of the economy, right, from these, you know, awful systems? And so, you know, I feel like there is a way to do that with art and games here. And there is a way to like reach the general public and say like, you know, here's a system that, you know, really bring people in and try to like get them in, not in a way of like, where it's like, oh, come on in, bring $50,000, you know, buy these tokens, which like no one is going to, you know, nobody knows or can tell you which ones. You might lose all your money, right? So who is that for? It's for people with $50,000 they can afford to lose, which is like actually not very many people, right? We need to bring people in without saying come in with cash, right? So come in with creative spirit and make some art, right? Come in with a little money and buy some art that you like, right? And if it doesn't go up in price, you have art that you like. That's the point, right? You know, I don't know. I mean, I have a bunch of art around this place, and like, I don't know if any of it has any value, right? I don't know if I could resell any of it. Right. I don't care. I didn't buy it to resell, right? So that spirit of like, let's make some stuff, let's buy some stuff, let's have like regular economic interactions and not be thinking about like how I'm going to make 1,000x of the money I brought in. Like that is the spirit that I'm sort of trying to bring to the space, because I think that if you can make that happen, then you really can potentially someday do something like banking the unbanked, where people have like gotten into this ecosystem, they're starting to interact, they're starting to have these economic interactions, and you can start to say, okay, like I can actually, you know, we can have like liquidity for our community, right? So the other founder of Cosmos, Ethan Buckman, like really likes to talk about local currencies, right? And to me, what resonates to me about like his, you know, these ideas is this idea of like, as a community of people who want to like interact and like make chairs for each other and like do massage therapy for each other, you don't want to be limited in your ability to do that by whether you have enough liquidity in some asset that isn't like relevant to your community, right? So like if you're a poor town and you like have a bunch of stuff and you want to like take care of each other, but you can't because you don't have enough dollars in the town to pay each other at all. Like that's like a ridiculous waste of like value and you know, human energy, right? So the idea of like, can we like unlock the liquidity of the planet so that people are not in this liquidity trap where they need these other assets in order to be productive and like take care of each other? You know, that has been sort of what motivates me. And so, you know, I don't know, maybe that feels a little bit distant from like the thing I'm building, but like that is sort of where I'm trying to go. And like what I try to keep in mind is this idea of like regular human beings doing regular human being stuff, right? And try to like make them a little less dependent on these extractive institutions.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I think it's underlying, you know, philosophy in what you're building right now. So it totally makes sense at all, you know, and also due to your experience and various experiences, I think that really accumulated in making this whole, you know, insight. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And a lot of the community members, especially from Korea, they express a lot of, you know, interest in Pylons, and they send us like a bunch of questions. So why don't we like go through them and, you know, because yeah, let's do it. So I think one of the major questions was like, since Pylons is an incubating project from Tendermint and it is like a baby project, very like loved and cared, but why is it doing an IDO on osmosis instead of gravity decks? That was a question from the community. Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, osmosis has all the liquidity right now. That's the situation. So, you know, I really like the bee harvest team. Like we hung out in Lisbon and they were like really great. And we hung out and we talked about like, you know, the nature of like their matching engine. And I really enjoyed talking to them about like their DeFi stuff. And we talked about Pylons and stuff. So like, I'm a fan of gravity decks, but like, you know, you have to engage with the world as it is. And the world as it is right now is that the liquidity in the deck space is in osmosis. And so you have to go, if you want to sell, you know, a big, like, you know, a 9-figure quantity of tokens, you got to go where people have money, right? Yeah. That's where people have put their money. So we could put it on you know, I'm not against putting stuff on gravity decks that it'll be its own chain by then. So, yeah, we might do some kind of hybrid thing, but, you know, I also, you know, Sunny is, you know, I also like really like Sunny and Josh and Dave, right? Like, yeah, all three of those guys are really cool. Like I enjoy spending time with them as well. I think that like what they built is, has really, really moved the interchain forward. It's really one of the best projects in the last couple of years. So, you know, we don't like, Pylons is not here to like be a tool to like try to like help gravity decks like compete against osmosis, right? Like that's not how Tendermint thinks about its incubations, right? We're not like that's the sort of thing that the PayPal mafia does, right? Where they'll like, you know, use their like market power in every other way to like have their investment like beat the other competitors, right? Yeah. That is not how Tendermint thinks about its incubations, and that is not how Tendermint thinks about the sort of competitive landscape and where there's competition between gravity decks and osmosis. So I don't know. That's a bunch of different answers, but yeah, totally makes sense.
I think it was definitely one of the hot topics, you know, in the community this year. So it's had to ask that. And also, naturally, a lot of people are interested in the IDO, but can you also tell us about the vesting period and also, you know, the schedule and just the general, you know, I guess the specifics that you can share with us?
Sure. So, you know, we haven't figured out all of the legal and regulatory strategies for the token launch. And so the vesting period, you know, is likely to be driven by that. From a strategic perspective, what I'm thinking of doing is to do things sort of the other way, which is to have a very slow like liquidity pool, like bonding curve time, right? Basically what I'm thinking is like, what if we had a 24-month period for selling out like our first chunk of tokens, right? And so instead of having vesting period for individual purchasers, right? It's just like, as we start, there's only gonna, like the float would be very small at the beginning. And so it's not that you'd need necessarily a lockup, it's that there just wouldn't be that much, right? And so if you commit to sell a lot of tokens, but you sell them over a defined period in some sort of controlled way, then potentially, that addresses this ability, like no one can really rug you because like, hopefully, what I want to have is a lot of people looking at the tokens, right? Looking at this big pool of like tokens to be sold slowly and being like, okay, like I want to buy some of this, but like, here's my entry price and I'm going to see how things go as more tokens come out, right? And so if somebody tries to rug the project, I'm hoping that there's like a lot of liquidity. They're going to be like, well, all right, I'll just buy that now, right? Because there just won't be enough, right? So that's my personal sort of opinion about how I want to do things. I don't love token lockups. I think they're a little awkward. Like, we do them in sort of the standard economy for insiders, right? If you get stuff, if you have inside information, then you have some lockup.
Sure.
And we'll do whatever lockup investing sort of the lawyers want us to do. But fundamentally, I think that I'd rather do things by controlling the source liquidity on the IDO side and letting things take time, but committing up front to how money I'm going to sell over how long, right? So a big chunk locked into a contract, but actually selling slowly, and then do the lockup on the sell side rather than on the buy side.
So the specifics are going to be specified a little later once the legal, I guess, the solutions are made. And yeah, thanks for sharing the details. And I think a lot of people were also asking about the role of the token, the ecosystem token. So can you also tell us more about that as well?
Right. So the core Pylons token is called Bedrock, and it represents, ownership of the Pylons network. It's a governance token, so it allows you to vote to set, for example, the commission fee of the network, which is sort of the key number, right? Like, how much does the network charge? So that'll be controlled by governance. It'll also let you, one of the things we're going to do is assign copyright ownership of the code to a trust that is for the benefit of the token holders and is governed by the chain governance. So if somebody wanted to fork the Pylons code base, they could make a proposal to chain governance and say like, hey, can I have a license to fork the code base and build some chain, right? And in exchange for whatever, and then the token governance could vote on that, right? And then the money comes into the whatever treasury or gets distributed to the stakers or whatever it is you want to do. So that's sort of the core of, and then the commission itself, right? So Pylons doesn't have a native payment token. It doesn't have a traditional utility token, right? Because of the usability requirements, I've decided that it's a non-starter to tell users they have to buy some token they don't know anything about in order to use the system. So, you can, we're working on payment gateways. We have a very sort of like demo one that uses the Stripe platform. And we're working on sort of like, how do you do sales on this platform, whether it's with like a fiat payment integration or whether it's with some crypto token you might already have. If you're already in the space, like you want to use ETH, you want to use Bitcoin. I'm actually really excited about trying out Gravity Bridge. I haven't moved anything over, but I want to try out Gravity Bridge because I want to be able to move ETH to Gravity Bridge, move it to Pylons with a relayer, and then price things in ETH. Right, because that's what people have. So there's no like utility token payment token that's native to the network. The network takes its fees in the payment token that you choose to sell in. So if you make art and you price it in ETH, people bring ETH over, right? They spend the ETH on the art, and then that ETH gets distributed. The commission that the network takes gets distributed to the token holders. So as a Bedrock token holder, you start receiving like ETH and Atom and maybe like US Terra, like whatever people are spending money in, whatever they're denominating their sales in, shows up in your wallet, right? That's your dividend, and that's sort of that's the core economics of the Bedrock token.
The dividend. Yes, I totally understand. I like the name, by the way, Bedrock. Any reason for the naming and the Pylons as well?
Well, I mean, so they work together. That's the visual metaphor here, is that you have Bedrock, right? And then into the Bedrock, you sink this pylon, right? And on top of the pylons, you build a beautiful bridge.
So it's a very visual, visual.
Yeah,
name.
well, we are all of these. What we are is like a tool for you to build, like, you know, some kind of like, you know, transportation system, right? Like, you need your pylons in order to like have your span. So that's, and the pylons are grounded in the bedrock. That's the metaphor.
Oh yeah, thank you. And you're currently, you know, involved in the Hackathon, the biggest one yet. So yeah, congrats on that. But what can you share, like what development stage Pylons is at right now? And also a lot of people are asking when mainnet, which is like one of the most common questions that come up on Twitter.
So the Hackathon was really interesting. We had a bunch of people using the chain. It was our first real usage by external developers. It was a bit of a wake-up call for our engineering team on some aspects. People were asking these questions and they were like, oh.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, they were like a little bit like, they were kind of stressed by seeing all these new questions and all of these like issues they hadn't seen. And I was just really happy. I was like, because to me, like, that's a sign of a product like moving through into its next stage of growth, right? That's like leaving, you're like not a larva anymore, right? That's like the next growth phase for the project. Is suddenly you have these engineers angry at you that you like don't have the right query APIs, you idiot, like what were you thinking? Like, how could you build something like this, you moron, right? And I see that and I'm like, oh, awesome, like somebody cares, like awesome.
Oh my God. Constructive criticism, I guess. That is
well, just like any criticism is like, any criticism represents attachment, right?
That's true.
So it was really awesome to see that. You know, I think like we definitely saw that some of the stuff that we had overlooked would have really made it a lot easier for the hackathon teams to like build good projects. So that's unfortunate and you know, regrettable. But it was also like, I think, really energizing and transformative for us as like a team to like move to the next stage. And now we're talking about, you know, because for a long time, the SDK was just in my head as to like what it was for and why it needed to exist. And I was giving like really, it has to do this, it has to do that, like it needs to do this, it should work this, right? Our demo apps have to only talk to the wallet app through this SDK. And everyone thought I was just like being, you know, a weirdo basically on my team. And then after Hackathon, now the engineers are like, oh, you know, the SDK design's not really what it should be. You actually should have done it like this. You should have done that. You should have done that. It needs this. It needs this. Like, we need an SDK roadmap. And I was like, yes, we do need an SDK roadmap. So it was just like a great moment. So, all right. So where does that lead me in terms of like when mainnet? So, you know, I had a talk with Peng last week. Peng is CEO of Tendermint.
Yes.
And what he said was basically like, Michael, like, you know, your first hire was 6 months ago. You've been sprinting so hard. Like, you got this test net out. You have 40 validators. It's like it's an impressive situation. Have you considered taking a little more time to like really deliver something excellent and polished for launch, rather than like launching at the very earliest conceivable opportunity? And I was like, no, Peng, I hadn't considered that. It was like,
I can still picture this conversation.
Yeah. And he was like, well, you should consider that because I think it would be a good idea. And like, you know, Tendermint, like, you know, would love to support you in your launch. And like, here's, you know, like, And he was like, what if we had timings? Like, what if it was like more of a Q3 thing? And I was like, can I wait for Q3? And he was like, yeah, you can polish and launch in Q3. And I was like, oh. And so that's sort of like, you know, I spent the last week and a half just sort of sitting with that and then just being like, that probably is better. That probably is better. Because we've been like, you know, I've had milestones in my documents, right? And I've had timelines and desired things. And everything that I said we were going to do, we have done, but we've done it all 2 months late, which like in the grand scheme of things is actually fine. Like it's fine to be 2 months late on something like transformative and new, right? But like, it's like, okay, well, when it comes to launching a product, like really to the world, like really to the general public, you don't want to launch something that's like too sharp and unpolished and like on a timeline that like isn't great. So, you know, that's the thinking now is we are going to consolidate our code base. We're going to continue to hire engineers. We're going to hire blockchain engineers. We're going to hire Flutter engineers. And we're going to polish this thing into something that, you know, right now what we have is like unique and amazing. And it does stuff that nothing else out there can do, but it's like a little brittle. You have to use it just right. You know, a bunch of like really nice quality of life pieces are missing. And so we're going to polish all that stuff up. And I think mainnet is going to be Q3. That's, you know, I know that that's different from what the white paper says. But I think it's the right choice. Like that's, you know, I think that's the right strategy. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of projects do, you know, go through the same experience. So it's not a, you know, I think a huge surprise for everybody, but yeah, thanks for sharing that because it's, you know, it's definitely good to know and what you're focusing on during that time. And, you know, not only technical things, but during that time, I do plan to focus on something else as well, like in terms of the community involvement or, you know, because I think a lot of the, you know, of course, the Korean community, but also, you know, they're all curious about Pylons. And, you know, during that time, I think it's also a waste not to like get engaged as well. So I think you have to kind of play the two things at the same time. But do you have also other plans like non-technical that you do want to focus on in the interim?
Yeah, so we definitely want to continue to talk to the community. The testnet, you know, is live, and so we can start working. We can start building games. We're probably going to do a Pylons focused hackathon. My guess is it will be in April.
Ooh.
Yeah,
nice.
So it'll be like it'll be just for Pylons apps, and you know we'll have put more time into the SDK, put in a few more features, and we'll be out there like, hey, like let's build some Pylons apps, right? There's the testnet's live. You can put art on it. You know, you can do stuff now. So you don't, you know, we don't have to wait till mainnet to do cool things. There's a lot to do with just the testnet. There's a lot of community engagement we want to do. I'm really enjoying talking to the community. I think the people, I feel really good. I feel like the people who are interested in Pylons are the people who are interested in blockchain technology in like a real way, right? And the people who are like much more trying to like, you know, like flip a shit coin are like not that interested in Pylons, which is awesome because like I don't want to talk to them. So, you know, it's great, and I really enjoy engaging with the community that's interested in Pylons. So we're going to keep doing that. Grace, as you know, is like, you know, just doing an amazing job, like talking and really getting feedback from people, and she's magnificent. And then I think what it gives us is time to do potentially an incentivized testnet and do like a semi-mainnet kind of, you know, kind of thing. And I don't really know. If you have ideas on what we should do for an incentivized testnet, like send them my way. I'm interested. I'm going to try to talk to Zucky next week, the inventor of the incentivized testnet.
I know, right?
I know. And he's such a cool guy. I'm really, you know, but I'm going to be out in Palo Alto early next week, and I'm going to try to get some time to hang out and have lobster rolls with Zucky. and talk about
pick his brain.
Yeah, talk about like what should I do, like incentivize testnet wise, you know. He's probably been waiting for me to ask him that for like 4 months, right? He's like, Michael will get there, he'll figure it out. You know?
I really like how you're like being flexible in terms of the project development, and it's very interesting to see a project evolve. I mean, even on my end, I'm, you know, indirectly, I'm an observer, but still, it's very interesting to see how it's going to evolve, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next year as well for Pylons and also for the hackathon. Last question: what is your ultimate vision? I mean, in terms of for Pylons, but also in, you know, personally as well. That'd be very interesting to hear.
Ultimate vision.
It's a very grand question. Sorry.
I know. I just want to be like, you know, like fireballs and.
I know.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit. It's really about disintermediation. It's really about ownership and control of what you do and what you make. Letting creators set the terms for the things that they create, and engage directly with their audience under their own terms. To me, that's the ultimate vision. It's this idea that, like, you know, do you know art galleries take about 50% of what artists sell their art for?
I know, true, crazy.
That's a lot, you know? I really want to try to help create a system where people really keep the bulk of what they do and engage directly, and can have these like micro fan bases. We can like decentralize the consumption of art, and you can sort of like, you know, be on Twitter and have 5,000 followers and like have a little career and sell some cool stuff. That's the vision, is to just sort of like this. I really have always, you know, when people said to me, let's bank the unbanked with Bitcoin, I was like, yeah, let's bank the unbanked, right? And I was always a little disappointed that we didn't do it. And so that's sort of what this is about, is like, how do I create a platform for indie game devs, like individual artists, like, you know, like musicians that are just starting out, like, you know, someone who makes cool little videos. Like, how do I make a platform for them to be able to commercialize this a little bit under their own terms, not on some like, you assign copyright to me and I sell ads and then I like give you some portion of the ads, right? Like, that model, in my opinion, kind of sucks for everyone. I hate ads anyway. So, you know, but something that really lets you like decide how you want to do things and provide access to your fans in a way that's really on your own terms. Like, to me, like, you know, I know that is like a long way off and a hard road, but to me, like, that's where I'm setting my sights, and that's sort of what I'm using as like my like guiding principle for like how I choose to like steer the ship, is like towards a world where like we provide this like freer, more decentralized, more like individually controlled economy for intellectual property of all kinds.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your vision. I truly hope that, and I know that you can achieve it, and we can all, you know, I'm a big fan of Pylons. I do want to, you know, see you guys going forward next year, and looking forward to also seeing you in person, maybe at the hackathon, who knows. But yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for your time, and come back again on the show. Thank you so much. Yeah.